In his wounded state, he was put on board a cutter and conveyed to Haslar Hospital at Gosport, where the bullet was extracted, and where he now is, I hope, in a fair way of doing well. The surgeon of the hospital wrote to the family on the occasion, and John Harwood went down to him immediately, attended by James, whose object in going was to be the means of bringing back the earliest intelligence to Mr. and Mrs. Harwood, whose anxious sufferings, particularly those of the latter, have, of course, been dreadful. They went down on Tuesday, and James came back the next day, bringing such favourable accounts as to greatly lessen the distress of the family at Deane, though it will probably be a long while before Mrs. Harwood can be quite at ease. One most material comfort, however, they have, the assurance of its being really an accidental wound, which is not only positively declared by Earl himself, but is likewise testified by the particular direction of the bullet. Such a wound could not have been received in a duel. At present he is going on very well, but the surgeon will not declare him to be in no danger. Mr. Heathcote met with a genteel little accident the other day in hunting. He got off to lead his horse over a hedge, or a house, or something, and his horse in his haste trod upon his leg, or rather ankle, I believe, and it is not certain whether the small bone is not broken. Martha has accepted Mary's invitation for Lord Portsmouth's ball. He has not yet sent out his own invitations, but that does not signify. Martha comes, and a ball there is to be. I think it will be too early in her mother's absence for me to return with her. Sunday evening. We have had a dreadful storm of wind in the fore part of this day, which has done a great deal of mischief among our trees. I was sitting alone in the dining-room when an odd kind of crash startled me. In a moment afterwards it was repeated. I then went to the window, which I reached just in time to see the last of our two highly valued elms descend into the sweep. The other, which had fallen, I suppose, in the first crash, and which was nearest to the pond, taking a more easterly direction, sunk among our screen of chestnuts and firs, knocking down one spruce fir, beating off the head of another, and stripping the two corner chestnuts of several branches in its fall. This is not all. One large elm out of the two on the left-hand side as you enter what I call the elm walk was likewise blown down. The maple bearing the weathercock was broken in two, and what I regret more than all the rest is that all the three elms, which grew in Hall's meadow and gave such ornament to it, are gone. Two were blown down, and the other so much injured that it cannot stand. I am happy to add, however, that no greater evil than the loss of trees has been the consequence of the storm in this place, or in our immediate neighbourhood. We grieve, therefore, in some comfort. I am yours ever, J.A. The next letter, written 4 days later than the former, was addressed to Miss Lloyd, an intimate friend whose sister, my mother, was married to Jane's eldest brother. Steventon, Wednesday evening, November the 12th. My dear Martha, I did not receive your note yesterday till after Charlotte had left Deane, or I would have sent my answer by her, instead of being the means, as I now must be, of lessening the elegance of your new dress for the Huntsbourne ball by the value of 3 shillings. You are very good in wishing to see me at Ipthorpe so soon, and I am equally good in wishing to come to you. I believe our merit in that respect is much upon a par, our self-denial mutually strong. Having paid this tribute of praise to the virtue of both, I shall here have done with panegyric, and proceed to plain matter of fact. In about a fortnight's time I hope to be with you. I have 2 reasons for not being able to come before. I wish so to arrange my visit as to spend some days with you after your mother's return. In the first place, that I may have the pleasure of seeing her, and in the second, that I may have a better chance of bringing you back with me. Your promise in my favour was not quite absolute, but if your will is not perverse, you and I will do all in our power to overcome your scruples of conscience. I hope we shall meet next week to talk all this over, till we have tired ourselves with the very idea of my visit before my visit begins. Our invitations for the 19th are arrived, and very curiously they are worded. Mary mentioned to you yesterday poor Earl's unfortunate accident, I dare say. He does not seem to be going on very well. The 2 or 3 last posts have brought less and less favourable accounts of him. John Harwood has gone to Gosport again today. We have 2 families of friends now who are in a most anxious state, for though by a note from Catherine this morning there now seems to be a revival of hope at Manydown, its continuance may be too reasonably doubted. Mr. Heathcote, however, who has broken the small bone of his leg, is so good as to be going on very well. It would be really too much to have 3 people to care for. You distress me cruelly by your request about books. I cannot think of any to bring with me, nor have I any idea of our wanting them. I come to you to be talked to, not to read or hear reading. I can do that at home, and indeed I am now laying in a stock of intelligence to pour out on you as my share of the conversation. I am reading Henry's History of England, which I shall repeat to you in any manner you may prefer, either in a loose, desultory, unconnected stream, or dividing my recital, as the historian divides it himself, into 7 parts: the civil and military, religion, constitution, learning and learned men, arts and sciences, commerce, coins and shipping, and manners, so that for every evening in the week there will be a different subject. The Friday's lot, commerce, coins and shipping, you will find the least entertaining, but the next evening's portion will make amends. With such provision on my part, if you will do yours by repeating the French grammar, and Mrs. Stent will now and then ejaculate some wonder about the cocks and hens, what can we want? Farewell for a short time. We all unite in best love, and I am your very affectionate J.A. The next 2 letters must have been written early in 1801, after the removal from Steventon had been decided on, but before it had taken place. They refer to the 2 brothers who were at sea, and give some idea of the kind of anxieties and uncertainties to which sisters are seldom subject in these days of peace, steamers, and electric telegraphs. At that time, ships were often wind-bound or becalmed, or driven wide of their destination, and sometimes they had orders to alter their course for some secret service, not to mention the chance of conflict with a vessel of superior power, no improbable occurrence before the Battle of Trafalgar. Information about relatives on board men of war was scarce and scanty, and often picked up by hearsay or chance means, and every scrap of intelligence was proportionately valuable. My dear Cassandra, I should not have thought it necessary to write to you so soon but for the arrival of a letter from Charles to myself. It was written last Saturday from off the start and conveyed to Popham Lane by Captain Boyle on his way to Midgham. He came from Lisbon in the Endymion. I will copy Charles's account of his conjectures about Frank. He has not seen my brother lately, nor does he expect to find him arrived, as he met Captain Inglis at Rhodes, going up to take command of the Petrel as he was coming down, but supposes he will arrive in less than a fortnight from this time, in some ship which is expected to reach England about that time, with dispatches from Sir Ralph Abercrombie. The event must show what sort of a conjurer Captain Boyle is. The Endymion has not been plagued with any more prizes. Charles spent 3 pleasant days in Lisbon. They were very well satisfied with their royal passenger, whom they found jolly and affable, who talks of Lady Augusta as his wife, and seems much attached to her. When this letter was written, the Endymion was becalmed, but Charles hoped to reach Portsmouth by Monday or Tuesday. He received my letter communicating our plans before he left England, was much surprised, of course, but is quite reconciled to them, and means to come to Steventon once more, while Stevenson is ours. From a letter written later in the same year, Charles has received £30 for his share of the privateer, and expects £10 more, but of what avail is it to take prizes if he lays out the produce in presents to his sisters? He has been buying gold chains and topaz crosses for us. He must be well scolded. The Enderman has already received orders for taking troops to Egypt, which I should not like at all if I did not trust to Charles being removed from her somehow or other before she sails. He knows nothing of his own destination, he says, but desires me to write directly, as the Enderman will probably sail in 3 or 4 days. He will receive my yesterday's letter, and I shall write again by this post to thank and reproach him. We shall be unbearably fine.